Hey out there, I'm Rain Phoenix. I am here to share with you that we have a new Patreon page for LaunchLeft. LaunchLeft is a podcast, a label, a launchpad for left-of-center artists. It's an intentional space and an ecosystem to talk about art and activism, to talk about changing the culture and the industry from one of competition to one of kindness and collaboration. And for those of you who've heard the podcast, you know this. We bring on known artists who pick the next great emerging artists and the ones that are a little left of center, the ones that are outside the box, the ones that might not make it to a normal commercial public domain, as it were. Become a patron today. Help us launch new artists on LaunchLeft. LaunchLeft Podcast. Bring us new artists and we will launch left. Hi, I'm Rain Phoenix. This is LaunchLeft, an intentional space for art and activism. It's a podcast, a label, a launchpad for left-of-center artists. You can find us at launchleft.com, at LaunchLeft on all socials. Please rate and subscribe. Our guest today, Dreamwife. Please welcome them to the show. How are you? Dreamwife.
Yeah, really good. Excited to be here and get to speak to you.
Your music is so fun and also laden with meaning. And I'm curious how you guys met.
Yeah, we actually met. We grew up in Somerset, quite rurally, and we met at Mid-Somerset Battle of the Bands when we were 16. Alice's band played, and it was the coolest thing I had ever seen in my whole life. And then we moved to Brighton to study art, and I actually ended up moving in with Raquel through a Gumtree advert. So we were housemates before we were wives.
When you guys met and started playing music together, did you kind of form with a purpose to get somewhere or say something, or was it just merely for the joy of music?
We formed because Raquel and I, we went on a sober night out with our housemates, and we decided that we wanted to go on holiday. We wanted to visit our friends who lived in Canada, but we were like, we can't just go to Canada. We have to form a band and tour Canada. And then, it kind of became a number of different things. I guess it was kind of wrapped up in part of Raquel's like university stuff. You should talk about that. But for me and Alice particularly, because I was studying painting and she was studying sculpture, music existed in this really like fun place outside of the institution where you didn't have to kind of worry about all the kind of rules about what art is or should be, and you could just have fun and play and collaboration as well. Like, it felt really exciting to move into a space of collaboration.
So like it didn't have to have this kind of full-blown idea molded around it, how often that's how art practice was in uni. You had to always have an end result, I felt. And this was a kind of a way to just have fun and create without having to have an end result.
And if you don't mind me asking, how did music find each of you?
I like that you said, if you don't mind me asking, because I guess it is quite personal.
It is.
It's a nice way to phrase that. It's like, yeah. How did music find you? I'm really lucky that I grew up in a family of artists and theater people. I very much linked music to performance. That kind of music found me quite young because I just wanted to be like, my family. And Dolly Parton as well.
So she was a formative artist for you?
Yeah, I was really lucky. I grew up in California when I was a kid, up until the age of 10, but then I went back to Iceland. But my mom signed me up for the Imagination Library that Dolly Parton has. Do you know the one?
The Imagination Library, that sounds like the best thing ever.
I haven't told you about this?
No.
Okay.
Anything to do with Dollywood? No, it doesn't. It's probably something totally different. Now I need to know. I was
She has all these incredible, it's such a big company that Dolly Parton has sort of around her. This is one of her charities that she founded in the 80s. And it was because she wanted to sort of help children learn how to read. And her father was illiterate and always wished that he could read. So it was a kind of in his honor. So she started this book club, and it's now grown since the 80s to about 1 million kids around the world get a free book each month as part of the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. And she picks different child authors, also it's like huge for children's authors, to be part of this book club. And it's just encouraging children to read. So the first book you got was Dolly Parton's book, which is her children's book called The Coat of Many Colors, after her song. And there was this big picture of Dolly on the back of the book, and it was my favorite book when I was a kid. It's about the value of life, growing up poor, but you're not poor because family is the most valuable thing. So it's more about sort of looking at what are your values. Oh, I love Dolly. But it wasn't until like after, I read that was my favorite book as a kid, and then I discovered Dolly a bit later on, musically. I recommend it.
That's a great influence.
Do you like Dolly?
I do. Strangely enough, I covered the song Coat of Many Colors.
How did you feel singing that song? What feeling did it evoke?
Well, I think it just touched upon what I was raised with, which was that idea of like family and love was far more important than wealth, and also just sort of like how important it is to be strong regardless of the adversity of other people and their opinions of you, Yeah, I love that we're having a Dolly moment. Hope she sees this episode. Well, how did music find you, Isabella?
I never thought I was going to be a musician. This really wasn't my plan. Honestly, how it found me was probably through like hymns and stuff, which I was very anti-religious as a child, but I went to a Christian school. I loved the singing, we'd sing hymns every day, and that kind of way of connecting with a group. And my parents always played a lot of music in the house. My dad loves the indie rock, and my mum used to play a lot of Motown, and she took me to see Green Day when I was 12. But yeah, kind of played in a few bands when I was, or a band in my teens, where I was just kind of brought in to kind of play the glockenspiel and the harmonium, and that was super, super fun and experimental and stuff. And then, I started learning how to play bass when we decided to do Dream Life. Like, I had a little bit of background in guitar, so it wasn't starting from complete scratch, but it's been a surprise, and I still kind of struggle to kind of understand myself as a musician, or I play the bass in a band, and that's what I do with most of my life, but I don't know if I could call myself a musician. But I also feel okay about that.
You are a musician. You are. That's okay. You can take your time deciding that's for yourself.
Because I feel like then I would be like, I'm an artist, and music is one of the ways in which I express that. Yeah. But I also get very confused about the idea of being an artist, because I think an artist, that it should be a verb rather than a noun. I think it's a practice rather than something that you inherently are.
Beautiful.
I just get confused with words sometimes, and I'm always like, what do the words really mean?
You just decide what they mean, and that's what they mean. And then you can if you need to explain it to someone, then you explain it to someone. There are no rules, except the ones you make, and try not to make any. Except don't harm anyone. That's my one rule. Harmlessness is like one thing I try to live by. The rest, try to keep it open and fluid and see what feels right, and not, just don't be a dick is another way of saying it.
Yeah, that sounds like the right way to move through the world.
And the one...
Wait, Ray.
Yeah.
Before you go into your question, I'm quite curious to how you got into music.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, tell us your story.
How did music find me?
If you don't mind us asking.
If you don't mind.
Wow, no one's ever asked me that. It's a really good question.
I know, right?
Music found me before I found it. I was 3 years old, and I guess I sang out loud. And my brother had always played guitar. He was 2 years older, and I sang along to something, and my voice apparently was really great, or people really liked it, like my mom and dad and brother. And so next thing I knew, I was like, kept singing with him. And that's how music found me. It was very sort of organic. I was just a kid singing along to stuff. And then it became sort of like something I just did all the time with him. He would write songs when he was really young, and I would sing with him. So it was more like that. I didn't find it necessarily through, in terms of how music found me, that inspired me. It was things my parents played around the house. They liked all kinds of music, from like Steely Dan to Carole King to Steel Pulse, Bob Marley, like that whole 60s, 70s era, that would be playing around the house, and that was always inspiring. But yeah, in terms of how I came to music, it was sort of just very young. So then it became who I am today. It's sort of just part of me. It wasn't very conscious. It was just like, okay, I do this now because it feels right. Yeah.
Did your brother teach you how to play guitar?
He did. He taught me like 3 or 4 folk chords that I still write with today. I write those. If I write the music, I always play those 4 chords to write with, in different configurations with capo, so they're keyed differently.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for asking. That was super sweet. 2 questions that I always ask. One is, how did music find you? And the second is about activism and what you champion as an artist, or what finds its way into your work as an artist for others.
I think where I'm at with this in my personal journey with it, because I think, like, I've never defined as an activist. Like, I don't think about this band in an inherently activist way, but like, it's often really, really received that way, and I think we kind of try and do things on our terms, and kind of, we did things like we set up these meetups before our tour. So we'd be like playing a show in a city, and we'd invite kind of 30-odd young people from the area and get like local promoters or producers, or like people that are kind of involved in music, like mostly women and non-binary people, to come, and we'd all sit down on the floor together and have a chat about the local music scene and like people's relationships to music and stuff like that. And yeah, I think for me, really, it's kind of, and okay, it's a contradiction, and I think contradictions are interesting and super important and should be paid the closest attention to, and aren't necessarily a bad thing. Because I think within a kind of patriarchal world, things contradict each other all the time.
Yeah.
And that's just completely natural. But I think it's this kind of trying to address the sort of this kind of upward trajectory totemic thing, like we're not these like kind of unreachable, untouchable performers on a pedestal. We're like regular people that want to hold a conversation with people in a city about how the music scene there works. Like, I think that a big part of it is trying to diffuse the power in certain ways and to spread that out. And like, even in just kind of like one-on-one conversations you have with people after the shows, just like being like, are you in a band? You should start a band with people you trust. And like the amount of people that like are in bands now after we've had conversations with them about it, it's a really good feeling.
I think that sounds like a form of community activism. Even if you're going into new communities and having these meet and greets, it's like you're creating small community pods where you're inspiring each other or sharing, which is not that common and rather cool. I like that.
Yeah, and now we've got some more space from tour. It's exciting thinking about how we can kind of like empower those groups of people even more to kind of stay in touch with each other and work with each other after that situation. And also how to make it more of like a kind of grounding safe space as well. Like, I think I want to introduce kind of bits of meditation and stuff like that into that environment. I really think about music as a kind of meditative sort of experience, like where it's to do with like going down into your body and letting go of the thinking stuff. And I want to find ways to be able to share thoughts around that with people a bit more. But
Do you know Girls Rock?
Girls Rock?
Yeah, Girls Rock. It's I guess it's international, but volunteers get together in certain cities around the world. There's one in London, and they put on these great rock camps for both women and also for younger people to get together, pick up an instrument, try different types of instruments, and everything from like making your own logo to sort of various ways of encouraging women, trans and non-binary people to sort of form their own community around music and also their own approach, which I think is really great. So often, if I look back at my own musical education, there's a lot of pressure to be perfect. I feel like especially put on women to, like, for me personally, it took me a while to call myself a musician as well, even though I had like years worth of musical background, thanks to my parents. But I still struggled with it because I didn't feel like I was good enough. And I feel like that's so ingrained in women from a young age, especially when it comes to skills. So what Girls Rock does is like just take that away and just like pick up any instrument and play, make friends, and sort of empowering each other, and sort of strip away that kind of idea that you have to be perfect and able to, or play it live. Like they have like a live show at the end of the camp. So I think it's such a great way of allowing play, and I think that's quite, I guess that's community activism.
I also kind of want to speak to what a kind of high energy live show we have. I think a lot of the time from the kind of feedback you get, people are really shocked to see people in bodies like ours being as physical and as aggressive and as kind of present in our bodies in a certain way. Like I think kind of there are elements to the way in which we take up space that could be considered activism. I know I really could have done with seeing this band play when I was a teenager to know that you could exist in those ways, you know. It's taken me a really, really long time to get comfortable in my body enough to be able to kind of let go in the way that you need to in order to kind of perform in the way that we do. That kind of like submission to the body, you know. I was like so afraid of my body and so afraid of being in my body, and I think being able to provide an example of like a really embodied experience is really powerful. Like that's been what being in this band has given me more than anything on a personal level, like the experience of being in my body and like feeling safe in my body and feeling like I can express from inside my body. And I think providing an example of that is important.
I agree completely. I think that's a really good point. You ladies are so lovely. This was great. I feel like now I just want to play your video for sports and have people listen to it and watch it and go, rah, rah, rah.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
No problem. Taking the time to talk to us.
Likewise.
Thank you again for sharing your music and your art with LaunchLeft's community.
Thank you.
Good day. Mwah.
Have a good day.
Fuck, sorry, fuck, please will you so kindly start again?
Now put your money where your mouth is. Put your money where your mouth is. You see, height is time, time is money, never apologize. These are the rules. Height is time, time is money, never apologize. These are the rules. Height is time, time is money, never apologize. These are the rules. These are the rules. I got ice water in my
LaunchLeft aims to create an intentional space that highlights and empowers all artists for whom radical creativity is not a choice, but a necessity. LaunchLeft begins with music, but its ultimate aim is to launch left-of-center artists in all creative fields.